guys, welcome to my first Overwatch video. I've been playing this game so much recently, and because I've been enjoying it so much, I've also invested a lot of time into watching YouTube videos about this game and trying to develop a better game sense and understanding of the heroes. But unsurprisingly, I found that almost all of the big Overwatch channels play on PC, which is to be expected. The game was seemingly designed with PC in mind and pro level is being played on PC. It makes sense for the most players to play Overwatch on the PC, but content creators in particular benefit the most from playing on PC, as that's the platform where the most hardcore players are, and players who really aspire to improve and maybe go pro some days up playing on the PC. But the game doesn't play identically on PC and console, and I found that there was hardly any console focused Overwatch videos out there. So with my channel being focused around a console exclusive shooter game, I figured many of you probably play Overwatch on consoles as well, and might be interested in some tips on how to improve your aim on console Overwatch. In this video I will mainly focus on hit-scan heroes like Soldier 76, McCree and Widowmaker, and even Tracer, but projectile based heroes can definitely also benefit from applying some of these tips into your gameplay. First important thing to note is your sensitivity. A lot of console players mistakenly think that playing on a high sensitivity is a good thing, but when you're using a controller, this simply isn't true. Compared to mouse and keyboard, controllers are very limited. You can't turn as quickly, but more importantly, you cannot be as accurate with thumbsticks as you can with a mouse. You will see a lot of highly skilled PC players playing on extremely high sensitivities and doing fantastically well, but most high tier FPS players on console play on a low sensitivity, myself included, because it's so much easier to be precise. Aiming is all about timing. Most of the time you will be making quick horizontal and lateral movements with your right stick, and if your sensitivity is too high, you simply cannot react to it. With a hero like Soldier 76, you can get away with a bit of a higher sensitivity as he's very forgiving. He shoots a lot of bullets and does relatively high damage. But with McCree and Widowmaker, it's almost impossible to be accurate on a high sensitivity. Sure, it looks and feels super cool when you're quickly spinning around and snapping onto targets, but in reality you're missing a lot of shots you could be hitting if you were playing on a lower sensitivity. An odd thing about Overwatch's sensitivity system is that the horizontal and vertical sensitivity is different by default. You definitely want to change these to be identical, so it doesn't jack up your muscle memory when doing lateral and vertical corrections. Personally, I have my sensitivity set to 15 on both horizontal and vertical. This is a fairly low sensitivity that helps me be a lot more accurate. It may feel slow to you at first if you're used to a higher one, but if you struggle with accuracy, I highly recommend getting used to a lower sensitivity. Overwatch also allows you to customize your reticle quite extensively. For hit-scan heroes, I recommend using the short crosshair. The lines in this crosshair are actually intended to help you line up shots both horizontally and vertically, and it has a small gap in the middle that makes it easier to see when you've lined up a headshot. You can also change the color of this reticle. I use green personally as it contrasts well with the red outline of the opponents. And lastly, you can also toggle bloom on and off. Bloom is a mechanic that increases the spread of your weapon when firing continuously. I wouldn't recommend this on any other character than Soldier 76, as the bloom on Tracer's pistols and Sombra's SMG, Widowmaker's assault rifle, they basically all max out instantly, and when the reticle blooms it makes it harder to center your target. But with Soldier 76 the bloom increases more gradually, which means that the reticle provides information for you to help minimize the effects of bloom when burst firing. Now onto some more advanced techniques, and the first and probably most important skill is reticle placement. Essentially, you want to align your reticle with the head height of an opponent before you even see them. Thing is, you can rarely predict the exact location of an opponent, which means aligning your reticle horizontally is nearly impossible. Therefore, your vertical alignment is going to be crucial. If you line up the shot at head height, you only have to worry about making a horizontal adjustment, but if you don't, you'll have to make some much more difficult lateral adjustments. Take this clip on Temple of Anubis. Notice how I line up my reticle perfectly before this Widowmaker even comes around the corner, giving me an easy headshot when she comes around the corner here. Later, same life, same scenario, reticle perfectly lined up with the enemy Widowmaker's head, just a small horizontal correction and she's dead. The Mei jumps, I wait for her to land, take the shot on her. Mercy does get the rest and Widow moves sooner than I anticipate here. But even though I miss, my reticle is still at head height, allowing me to easily pick off the Mercy. This was all about reticle placement. Every single shot, my reticle was already lined up at head height before I even saw the target. It made it very easy to get these picks. This gets a lot harder when there's an elevation difference, as it will force you to make a lot of lateral adjustments that requires a lot of practice, and luckily there are ways of practicing this, as we will talk about a little bit later. But first, let's talk about strafing. Small movements from side to side while you're shooting. This is something you will see top tier players doing non-stop. By constantly moving unpredictably to the sides, you make it much harder for your opponents to hit you, which obviously helps greatly in duels. This can also jack up your aim a little bit, but strafing is essential to winning duels. You're simply too easy to hit if you're standing still, so even if you lose out on a bit of accuracy, it's worth it. This is best to practice with more forgiving heroes like Soldier 76 and Tracer, as you can afford to miss a few bullets. On console, strafing is actually referred to as lazy aiming at times, as it only requires you using your left stick. On console, this is fantastic for a number of reasons. First of all, you want to know that the guns in Overwatch actually don't recoil at all. This means you can focus on aligning your reticle at head height, and you can use strafing to aim. So if you have your reticle lined up correctly to the head, you can just use your left stick. You don't have to worry about jacking up your aim and hitting body shots. You can just strafe around your more difficult hit and you will be hitting a ton of headshots. Doing this mostly works on tanks, as the most squishy heroes in Overwatch are actually really quick. But it's still nice to keep in mind that you can focus on strafing and using that to aim, as opposed to using a right stick and possibly jacking up your aim. And the last technique I want to cover is active and passive aiming. These two words are words that I have coined myself. Active aiming is when you're actively using your right thumbstick to correct your reticle placement. This is what most players do all the time, trying to snap onto targets, and most of the time that is the right call. But in certain situations, you're better off using passive aiming. This sort of goes into the lazy aiming thing again. Basically, you're going to be using the opponent's movement to your own advantage by letting them walk into your reticle. You saw me doing exactly this in the Widowmaker clip from earlier, where I'm simply hot scoping the angle and just waiting for the enemy Widowmaker to walk out into the center of my scope and pulling the trigger. This clip against Ana bots is also a perfect example of me letting the opponent walk into my scope and just pulling the trigger at the right time. This technique is most useful with slow firing high damage heroes like Widowmaker and McCree, as it's very important to make every single shot count, and messy drag shots across your screen will often cause you to miss. With more forgiving fast firing heroes, active aiming is usually the way to go, as missing a few bullets isn't as detrimental to you. But on high risk heroes, it's sometimes best to just let the enemy engage you and shoot at the right time. This works very well in conjunction with baiting your opponents in, although that's not an aiming technique, so we won't cover it in this video. Now, knowing about all these techniques is great, but it can be difficult to practice in game at times, so having a good environment to do exactly that is helpful. And that is where Ana bots comes into play. This is a custom game mode, and it's definitely not groundbreaking. If you've looked up any guides on improving your aim in Overwatch, chances are you've heard of this. Basically, you want to create a custom game mode where you place 6 hard mode Ana bots on the enemy team. You want to pick hard difficulty for them so they move around more like real players would. After that, you want to go to the Heroes tab and turn off Ana's sleep dots and turn the setting to receive headshots only. You also want to turn up her damage received up to 200%. And just as important, you want to make sure that the hero you choose has headshots only enabled as well, as Ana can't actually land headshots, making you completely invulnerable. You want to make sure you set the game mode to skirmish only. You can fiddle with other game mode settings, but the only one I really recommend changing is reducing the respawn timer so the bots can come back onto the map as quickly as possible. As for maps, King's Row and Lijiang Tower are great as they're fairly flat, making it easy to focus on the previously mentioned techniques such as reticle placement, but in the gameplay you're seeing, I'm playing on Eichenwald because this is a map that has some elevation differences, which makes it quite good to practice on. If you think you're ready for something a little bit more advanced, I recommend picking a map that has a lot of elevation changes so you can practice lateral adjustments. I recommend practicing this at least 20 to 30 minutes every day if you really want to improve, and I guarantee you will see results really quickly. You can do this with any hero really, but I find that McCree and Widowmaker works best because they're much less forgiving than heroes like Soldier 76. In my case, I want to improve my scoped accuracy with Widowmaker, so I obviously picked Widowmaker, but if you want to practice basically any other hitscan hero, I recommend picking McCree. His aiming mechanics work in exactly the same way as any other non-sniper hero, so by practicing as McCree, you will be improving your accuracy as Soldier 76 drastically. You can do this with any hero that can hit crit shots, so technically you can do this to practice your Zenyatta aim, your Mei aim, and even a Risa if you want to, but it definitely works much better with hitscan heroes. Now, one last thing I want to talk about is control freaks. Many of you may be interested in control freaks, and before I even talk about this, I should say I am sponsored by control freaks. and you can use code CHRIS for 10% off, CRIS. It's also on screen. Wink wink. Control freaks are marketed to improve your aim, and while this is true to an extent, they don't perform miracles. The main selling point for me is that they're more comfortable than standard sticks, and they also protect your sticks from wearing down, which in the long run will save you a lot of money on controllers. Do they improve your aim? Marginally. If you don't have good aim, they're not going to magically make you amazing. So yes, they do make a difference, but it's not super massive. Anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found it helpful. Let me know if you want to see more Overwatch on the channel, and I will catch you guys on my next video.